Okay, today we're going to talk about ions. An ion is just an atom or a group of atoms that has a charge. And you might ask yourself, how does an atom get a charge? By gaining or losing electrons. Electrons move. So an atom has lost or gained electron. Whoops, that doesn't look like much to me. Electrons. Okay? An atom that has lost and electrons are negative, right? So an atom that's lost electrons has an overall positive charge. Lost electrons positive. And the fancy word for a positive ion is a cation. An atom that has gained electrons, since electrons are negative, if an atom gains electrons, it becomes negative. A negative ion, and the fancy name for negative ions is anion. We'll just say positive and negative. That just makes it easier, I think. So over here, I have two atoms, a lithium atom and a fluorine atom. Okay, lithium and fluorine. And I've got their atomic number. This is the way it is on your periodic table. I've got their atomic number in the upper left-hand corner. I've got the electron configuration in the bottom left-hand corner. So lithium has an atomic number of 3. It has 3 protons. It also has 3 electrons. Fluorine has an atomic number of 9. It has 9 protons. It also has 9 electrons. Okay? The only electrons that we're really going to worry about are the ones in the outermost shell, because those are the ones that move. The electrons in the innermost shells or the inner shells, they stay put. In most cases, there's some weird things that we're not really going to get into, but for our purposes, the electrons on the inside stay put. The only electrons that move are the ones in the outermost shells. So we've talked before about electrons wanting to have a full outer shell. And it's something called the octet rule. And you recognize the prefix OCT. And even though October is the 10th month, it means 8, like an octopus or an octagon. OCT means 8. So the octet rule says that an atom is most stable when it has 8 electrons in its outermost shell. The exception to this is hydrogen and helium, because they've only got 1 shell, so they can only hold 2 electrons. But all the rest of the atoms, they're most stable when they have 8 electrons in the outermost shell. Okay? So let's talk like these atoms really want to have 8 electrons or a full outer shell. Okay? So lithium only has 1 electron in its outer shell. It's easier for lithium to get rid of that electron than it is for it to gain the 7 more electrons. Okay? It's easier for it to get rid of one than to gain 7. Fluorine has 7 electrons in its outer shell. It really wants 1 more electron to become stable. Okay? It needs an 8th electron. With 2 electrons in it, and that's full. So lithium's going to be happy then. So lithium's going to get rid of this electron, paper. And it's going to give this electron to fluorine. So now lithium has 3 protons and 2 electrons. So 3 positive and 2 negative. So it has an overall charge of -1.
+1.
Excuse me, +1. Daniel's correcting me. +1. Just like it says up here in the upper right-hand corner. It says +1. That's its overall charge. So we denote that by putting a little plus sign up there. Now fluorine, on the other hand, has gained an electron. It still has 9 neutrons, but now it has 10 electrons. So it's got 9 neutrons plus 10 electrons, so it has an overall charge of -1. So it has a negative charge. Okay? Well, it actually has a new name now. We call it a fluoride ion, but we don't have to worry about that. So now we've got a positive charge and a negative charge, and just like magnets, when you have a north end and a south end, a positive end and a negative end, they're attracted to each other. And so these ions are attracted to each other. They don't join specifically, they are just attracted to each other, and that's called an ionic bond. An ionic bond is when 2 charged particles form a bond. Okay? And there's 2 more kinds of bonds that we'll talk about later, but right now we're only worried about ionic bonds. So I'm going to show you another example of an ionic bond. Oh, can you stop for a second?